This is a rock. It does nothing. It has no features. It is literally a stone in a cardboard box. Yet the guy who invented the pet rock made $15 million in 6 months. Meanwhile, you're sitting there tweaking your code, polishing your design, and obsessing over quality, and you are broke. This is the brutal truth about business. The market does not reward the best product, it rewards the best known product. McDonald's is not the best burger. Beats by Dre is not the best headphone. But they win because they understand one thing you don't. Distribution is king. Product is just the peasant. Stop trying to be a genius. Start being a loudmouth. The mousetrap fallacy. There is a famous quote often attributed to Ralph Waldo Emerson. If a man can write a better book, preach a better sermon, or make a better mousetrap than his neighbor, though he builds his house in the woods, the world will make a beaten path to his door. This is the most dangerous sentence in the history of business. It sounds romantic. It tells us that meritocracy is real. It tells us that quality is the only variable that matters. But in reality, if you build a better mousetrap in the woods, you don't get customers, you get silence. You get eaten by wolves, and eventually you go bankrupt. Let's look at the math. A business is not a sum of its parts. It is a product of its parts. The formula is value of business equals quality of product times strength of distribution. If your product is a 10 out of 10, a perfect masterpiece, but your distribution is 0, what is your result? 10 times 0 is 0. However, if your product is a 3 out of 10, barely functional garbage, but your distribution is a 10, well, 3 times 10 is 30. You have a business. This explains why we live in a world filled with mediocre products that dominate the market. Microsoft Windows wasn't the best operating system. It was the one pre-installed on every computer. VHS wasn't the best video format. It was the one with the most movies in the rental store. Most founders, especially technical ones, are mousetrap builders. They spend years perfecting the spring mechanism. They hide in the code. They hide in the design files. Why? Because building is safe. Building is controllable. The code doesn't reject you. Selling, on the other hand, is scary. Selling requires you to leave the woods and shout at people who might ignore you. So we convince ourselves that the product is the marketing. We tell ourselves, it's so good, it will sell itself. But let me be clear, nothing sells itself. Not cancer cures, not religion, and certainly not your SaaS platform. The first time versus last time rule. Now, don't misunderstand me. I am not saying your product doesn't matter. I am saying your product has a different job than you think. In business, there are 2 battles you must win. Battle number 1 is the first time. This is when a stranger decides to give you their money. Here's the hard truth. In the battle for the first time, product quality is irrelevant. Why? Because the customer hasn't used the product yet. They don't know if it's good. They only know your promise. At this stage, marketing is the only thing that exists. If you have the best software in the world, but your website is confusing, you lose. If you have a mediocre software, but your sales pitch is world-class, you win the first time. Battle number 2 is the last time. This happens 30 days later. Does the customer stay? Do they buy again? Or do they cancel and demand a refund? This is where the product finally matters. Marketing gets you the first date. Product gets you the marriage. The problem is that most founders try to use product to win the first date. They say, just try it, you'll see. But nobody tries it. Because you haven't sold them on the idea of trying it. Look at the movie industry. A movie trailer is pure marketing. It determines the opening weekend box office. If the trailer is great, millions buy tickets. They haven't seen the movie yet. They bought the promise. If the movie is actually terrible, bad product, word of mouth spreads and ticket sales drop next week. But the first time sale was already made. As a founder, you need to separate these two functions in your brain. Stop hoping your code will write your copy. Stop hoping your design will run your ads. You need to be aggressive on the front end, distribution, to get them in the door, and obsessive on the back end, product, to keep them inside. The invisible salesman. So if marketing wins the first time, does that mean you have to spend millions on ads? Not if you are smart. The best products in history didn't win because they were better tools. They won because they were better carriers. They acted like a virus. Look at Hotmail in the 1990s. They were struggling. They had no money for billboards. So investors gave them a simple idea. Put a small line of text at the bottom of every single email sent by a user. It said, P.S. I love you. Get your free email at Hotmail. Suddenly, every user became a salesman. If you sent an email to 10 friends, you just showed 10 people the product. If 3 of them signed up, they emailed 30 more people. This is called a viral loop. Engineers call this the K factor. If K is 1.0, every user brings in 1 new user. The business grows automatically without spending a dollar. Dropbox did the same. They didn't buy ads. They told users, if you want more free space, invite a friend. They bribed their users to become the distribution channel. Now look at your product. Is it a dead end or is it a bridge? Most products are dead ends. You buy it, you use it, you go home. That is a failure of design. To win in the modern economy, you must engineer the invisible salesman into the code itself. Can users share their results with a watermark? Do they get a reward for inviting a team member? Does using the product naturally involve other people, like Zoom or Slack? If the answer is no, you are fighting gravity. You are trying to push a boulder up a hill using only your own money. Stop treating marketing and product as separate departments. In a winning company, the product is the marketing department, the feature trap. There is a disease in the software world called feature creep. It starts innocently. You think, if I just add a calendar, more people will buy. Then you add a chat function, then a weather widget, then AI integration. You turn your product into a Swiss Army knife. It does everything, but it does nothing well. And here is the paradox. You think you are adding value, but to the customer, you are adding friction. Every new button is a decision the user has to make. Every new menu item increases what psychologists call cognitive load. When a user looks at a screen with 50 options, they don't feel empowered. They feel exhausted. They experience analysis paralysis and they close the tab. Look at the war between Google and Yahoo in the early 2000s. Yahoo was the portal. Their homepage had news, sports, weather, email, horoscopes, and stock prices. It was a feature-rich masterpiece. Google had a white page and a search bar. Everyone told Google they were crazy. Where is the content? Where are the features? But Google understood that the user didn't want to browse. They wanted to leave. They wanted to find one thing and go. Google won because they practiced subtraction. The best products in history are not defined by what they include, but by what they leave out. The iPhone had no physical keyboard. Twitter had only 140 characters. Instagram had no repost button. Antoine de Saint-Exupéry said it best. Perfection is achieved not when there is nothing more to add, but when there is nothing left to take away. If your product requires a tutorial video to understand, you have already failed distribution. The product must be obvious, so open your product roadmap today. Instead of asking, what can we build next? Ask, what can we kill? The price illusion. There is one final trap that kills almost every great product. It is the belief that cheaper is better. You look at your competitors and think, if I charge slightly less, I will steal their customers. This is called a race to the bottom. And the problem with a race to the bottom is that you might win. When you lower your price, you are not just lowering your profit. You are signaling to the world that your product is worse. In psychology, this is known as the Chivas Regal effect. The whiskey brand Chivas Regal was struggling. They had a good product, but nobody bought it. So instead of lowering the price, they doubled it. They changed nothing about the liquid in the bottle. They just changed the sticker. Sales exploded. Why? Because customers don't know how to judge quality objectively. We use price as a proxy for value. If it costs $100, we assume it's good. If it costs $5, we assume it's trash. When you price your product low, you attract the worst kind of customers, the bargain hunters. The ones who complain about everything and demand refunds. But when you price high, you attract serious people. People who are invested in the result. Furthermore, remember what we said in the beginning. Distribution wins. If you have a $10 margin, you cannot afford to advertise. You cannot afford to hire a sales team. You are invisible. But if you have a $1,000 margin, you can spend $500 to acquire a customer and still be rich. You can outspend every competitor. You can buy the market. So stop trying to be the affordable option. That is a graveyard for good products. Be the premium option. Charge enough to build a war chest that lets you dominate distribution. The product is you. So where does this leave us? It leaves us with a choice. You can continue to hide in your basement, tweaking your product, hoping the world will discover your genius. Or you can accept the reality of the market. The market does not care about your effort. The market only cares about your volume. Being a product founder is comfortable. It feels like work. But often it is just procrastination disguised as productivity. Real business is uncomfortable. It is shouting from the rooftops when you feel like nobody is listening. It is asking for the sale when you are afraid of rejection. Stop trying to build a product that sells itself. It doesn't exist. Instead, build a distribution machine that could sell sand in the desert, and then plug your product into it. Because in the end, the product is not the thing you sell. The product is you. Your ability to gather attention. Your ability to tell a story. If you can do that, you can sell anything. If you can't, it doesn't matter what you build. So close your code editor, open your mouth, and let the world know you exist. If you want to stop playing business and start building an empire, make sure to subscribe. Welcome to the minority.